Hi, it's odeean here today. I've got Mechaform Skyguardian, which is a third-party take on Skyfire. Previously, I've had Kronos from Dakar Toys, and I also have the Takara version, the current Takara version of Jetfire. So I haven't opened it yet, so this is really an unboxing. I'm going to do a comparison between all of them and see which one I like the best. Get my trusty toy opening knife. Now I've heard this has got no instructions, so it's going to be interesting to see how easy I can do it. As usual, BBTS have put their awesome bubble wrap in. Here we go. Let's get rid of this. It's a kind of G1 styled box, Mechaform logo here up the top. 3D artwork on the back. No actual pictures of the toy, I think, just all renders. Let's get this guy open. In the box, Skyguardian comes in a pretty typical bubble. It's good they've got this cardboard insert just to give it a bit more rigidity so it doesn't break. Now there's a few things I can see in there that I don't remember seeing in the thread over at Transformers World, like some kind of weapons. I don't remember seeing that. We also get this, which is a bit weird. Important, please read. Thank you for purchasing Skyguardian from Mechaform. Due to many steps needed to transform this product, we felt that it was best to create a video. Blah, blah, blah. It basically just says there's no instructions. Before I get into the proper part of the review, the toy came slightly mis-transformed. Not misassembled, assembled correctly, but just transformed incorrectly in the box. So I've put it into how it's supposed to be based on that artwork on the side of the box with these red things at the back and this kind of curve facing forward so that the elbow can bend. How it came in the box was kind of rotated around, and then this wrist piece rotated around so the arms couldn't bend properly. So at first I was kind of freaking out. I thought I had got a defective one that had wrong parts, but no, it was just kind of slightly mistransformed. Apart from that, once I've put that all right, I mean, I can see whoever put this in the box probably didn't take much time because there's some kind of mistransformation here. Let's stop the video and just get this 100% before I continue. Okay, I got those tabs in. I just want to quickly show this flat panel in here that was flapping around loosely when I first opened it. I can't get my fingers in there to tab that in. It's impossible. My fingers are just too big. So what I did was just get the flat side of this knife and hold it there and kind of push on the front, and that caused the peg to go in, and then that tab was finally in there securely. But without something to lever it, I couldn't actually do it with my own fingers. Alright, but it's holding together nice and securely now. I think the first thing I'll talk about is the head, because this head has received so much criticism online that it's probably one of the most important parts of the toy. Now I've put it in its best light there. If you put it facing forwards, it kind of looks alright, but I think one of the problems with it, it's got a very glossy paint on it, and you'll see as I turn it this way, eventually you get to a point where the light catches it badly and it looks like it's sort of concave where the mouth is. It bends in too much, and it's got such a simple design that if you're going to have the light reflecting off it like that, it does not look very good. But just straight on, I mean, it's no better or worse than most regular Transformers toys that I've seen. I mean, I do like the current Jetfire, my Takara Jetfire's head. His face sculpt is really good. I will show a comparison of that when I get to the comparison section, just to see. I mean, I'm wondering if even they're interchangeable. The size might be similar, but I just don't have it out yet. I'm going to show that in a minute. Apart from that, a lot of people have mentioned something about the hands. Now, I know the hands were originally just a big block, and then later on Mechaform did this remolding here, and to my eye it kind of looks alright. It's again pretty much on par with anything that we're getting from Generations. Excuse my voice, I've been on holidays, I'm just losing it a little bit. On the back you can see it looks like each finger is individually articulated, but no, it's just the main fingers all in one chunk. Now it does have that knuckle here and the knuckle there, so it's got two joints in the fingers, but they're not individual. Going on to the inside, the thumb is not articulated at all, it's just a molded piece, and that's on this hand. If you take a look at the other hand, it's basically the same hand, but on the inside it's got this extra thing, which, I mean, if you don't like it, you can flip it down out of the way like that, and it's kind of just hanging off the bottom there. I'm thinking that's something to do with transformation, but I'm not quite sure yet. And maybe it can hold one of these. There's no instructions, so I'm going to have to fiddle with it a bit just to see. Alright, as it turns out, that is to hold the weapons. So you get this little adapter gizmo. And I mean, funnily enough, I used to have the original Jetfire toy, the one that looks like a Valkyrie, and it also had an adapter, so this is not really unheard of in Jetfire Skyfire. That just snaps on like that, and then we get this missile spam rack of missiles, unpainted, but I mean, I guess you could put some little red tips on there, it might be cool. And that just pegs in here, so you've got a kind of extra way to hold the weapons. Now his gun can still peg in on the top, so I mean, I think they've just kind of repurposed it. It looks like a transformation peg to me, but they've given it a dual use, and that's pretty cool. I mean, you can still hold that. That's pretty awesome. Now that's not the only missile pod we get. We also get another one with this thing. That looks like it's meant to go under the wing, but you would think there would be two of these in order to have one under each wing, but in my one at least there's only one, which is kind of disappointing because I don't want to display it in jet mode with just one rack of missile spam under one wing. I don't know. I might contact BBTS to ask them about that. The gun itself is pretty nice. Let's just pop it out here. It's a bit hard to show up because it's truly black. It's not just grey, so it's a bit reflective. Its contrast is high, but it's got this thing that pops out, which is kind of a molded wheel. It doesn't rotate, but it must go under the jet in jet mode, which I haven't even done yet. But the look of it looks very Skyfire to me. Just from what I can remember on the cartoon, it looks pretty much like that. I'll do a comparison with my Dakar Toys. Now the Dakar Toys Skyfire had two guns. This guy's only got one, but then again, in the cartoon, Skyfire only ever had one. For storage, this gun can peg onto the back here. Now, the tolerance is a bit tight on mine. It was pretty hard to poke in there. It looks like standard 5mm. I'm going to get some other guns in a minute just to make sure that other 5mm can peg in there. And it seems to have this hole here. It kind of more easily pegs into this hole, so maybe that's where it's intended to go as a storage area. But there's a few other, just looking, I can see other areas that look like 5mm pegs, like on the back. I'm pushing that so hard. There we go. It goes in. I think the paint seems to be thick paint on this red section. That might have made it a little bit tight, but the gun definitely pokes into there nice and securely. I'm thinking, what's this? Maybe that? Just give it a go. No, not that. Okay. For posability, this guy's got, it's not amazing. I mean, it's got most of the things that count, but some of them are a bit limited. So on the shoulder, we've got a swing, but it only reaches this point. We've got like one major click here, and then here, but they're just a little bit spaced. And it feels tight, like the force inside is quite high to turn it, if you know what I mean. Maybe that's why there's like two screws on the back of each arm. That's probably what's limiting this swing. On the inside, you'll see there's a, I've just made it come untabbed. On the inside, there's this kind of metal rod with teeth in it. So it's, the detents are actually in the metal rod. On the elbow, we've got a swivel here, 90 degrees at the bicep. It's kind of friction, but with a couple of lock points, like there's one here and one here, but in the middle it just kind of moves freely. The wrist turns. That's it. The hands I mentioned before. No waist. The head's on a pretty decent ball joint. I mean, it doesn't wobble around. Got big ball joints on the hips. That was kind of friction that you heard there. It can go forward quite a way, but it can't really move back very far because you get a collision going on with this backpack. There's relatively soft detents on the knee, and if you transform it with this black piece stuck through the back of the heel here, there's actually no toe tilt, but I've seen some pictures online of that toe being bent, and I think the way that people have been doing that, if there's a good review over on Transformers World, I think the way they do that is to just untransform it a bit so that you can get that kind of thing happening, and then just pose it for your photos. But I think according to the transformation as it looks like it's designed, it's meant to lock in like that to make the foot rigid. All things considered, I think that you get pretty much the same level of posability as a bunch of other toys I've bought recently. The only thing that kind of just annoys me a bit is the lack of ankle tilts. I know that sounds stupid, everyone wants ankle tilts, but if you look at this pose where I've got him in, if this ankle could tilt just a bit, then it would add a lot of stability to the figure. I mean, luckily the front foot is quite big, so the fact that it's well balanced, it's got a kind of hollow chest cavity, so it's not top heavy, and the big feet mean that it can actually stand like that. But I mean, if you give the table a good bash, it will fall over, so probably best not to leave it in that position. Okay, so here's Skyguardian with Jetfire. Now, if you remember my video review of this a while ago, I like it. I like the figure. I like the figure as a figure, but I don't think that it looks like Skyfire, apart from the face sculpt. I mean, this face is really quite good, and the helmet, you know, it takes a lot of liberties from the cartoon. I wouldn't say it's a cartoon version of Skyfire, but it's definitely recognizable. It's more like a modern adaptation in that face, and it's pretty cool. But if I put these two side by side, I mean, quite honestly, this face looks more like what I see in the cartoon than this. I think this is a bit better. I mean, just as a robot head, this is a better head, but as a cartoon accurate head, I think this is closer than that. Now, I'm trying to see how this is attached. That's kind of a swivel joint in there. It's not a ball. And this definitely looks like a ball. So I don't think they're compatible. You could probably make them compatible by cutting this off and building some kind of putty around the socket for this ball post here. Maybe you could get it to go on, but just straight out of the box, I don't think that they're compatible without some kind of work. Jetfire is much more heavily Valkyrie than he is cartoon accurate, whereas Skyfire is really, I mean, he really looks cartoon accurate to me. I mean, these seem a bit big, but apart from that, maybe this, if I can hold the camera up, maybe if this red thing was a little bit higher and these wings a little bit shorter, it would be spot on. But I think I'm preferring Skyguardian over this. I mean, this is a beautiful Valkyrie, but look at the backpack, for example. And this is nothing like what we get in the cartoon. This is almost exactly like what we get in the cartoon. The little shape of this gizmo here, the other cockpit on the back. Now I know Jetfire has this secondary cockpit here, and in vehicle mode it kind of goes underneath, serving maybe the same purpose, but it's not really cartoon accurate. I mean, even when it comes to the nozzles, check this out. These nozzles are detailed, but it's kind of weak. It's like a weak detail there. Comparing it to this is like a more, I don't know, more cartoony. Look look at the depth of those lines. I think I'm liking this quite a bit. I don't know what these are for though. Some kind of bumps. Maybe one of these pieces. Jetfire's weapon here actually has a 5mm hole there, and I thought maybe these bumps on the back would fit into that 5mm hole, but you know, they're a bit small. So these, maybe it's some kind of afterthought, but apparently do nothing. So it just makes me curious why they're actually there. But if you do want to use this but still have the Jetfire, the weapons aren't going to go to waste, because I mean those peg holes that I showed you before they really can take any 5mm peg. I mean, look at that, that's on pretty securely. And if they can take official 5mm pegs, then I'm pretty sure most of my third-party stuff is going to be able to go on. Let's check this one out. Yep, Orion's gun can peg onto the back, so he can hold pretty much any 5mm standard peg in at least those ports. And in comparison with Kronos, I had forgotten some of the reasons Kronos pissed me off so much until I opened the box and remembered his finger is gone, until I remembered his shoulders popped apart when I picked him up and I had to snap these things back on, until I remembered his hips were jiggling so much that the figure almost fell over. Just looking at them, assuming you're going to leave them standing still, I mean, definitely if you've got a masterpiece toy, you're going to need Kronos, and that's just because you need that size. But if you're just playing with classic style figures, I don't see any need to keep this Kronos out. He can just go in storage and never come back. I mean, look at this. His freaking wobbly legs can't even hold themselves up. Now this gun is a proprietary peg. It is not going to go into, I don't think it's going to go into MP10. Let's just check that out before I say it might be bullshit. No, it doesn't fit into Masterpiece, and it doesn't fit into Skyguardian, so I can't show you this pegged on anywhere, and it's got no 5mm ports or pegs on it, so that's only going to be working with Kronos. Unlike this thing, which can work just with any standard weapon. The one design element that Kronos does seem to visually have over Skyguardian, at least in my opinion, is he does pull off this red backpack being higher than the head a little bit better. This is a bit lacking here. I mean, every time I look at it in the cartoon, it is definitely higher like this, and he does seem to have his wings shorter. So he's, I mean, the proportion of the wings seems the same, just however his transformation works to get the wing into that position makes it come up a little bit less than this guy, which these are a little bit elongated. But I mean, both of them are still longer in the wing here than the cartoon. In the cartoon, they really shrink down just by magic. Okay, the transformation. This is actually difficult to transform, but I've practiced it a few times and I think it's pretty unique. So let's give it a go. The first thing is I've made the arms straight here. I'm going to open these sections just to kind of get them out of the way. There's like little tabs on them. Slide the foot up and in like this. Same on the other side. Pop that, pop that. Come on, pop. Pop that up. Slide the foot, tilt the foot. It kind of holds itself in once it's in the right position. Unpeg this section here, like the nose, and you know, you've got to be careful, but there's a bunch of pegs all over the place holding this together. Like at the beginning of the review I mentioned pegs in here, so you want to release those pegs carefully because there's like thin plastic here and it doesn't feel like it's going to break, but there's many moving pieces and you just wouldn't want to rip them out. Oh, I forgot an important thing. You see I'm wrecking it here. Before any of that, you should bend the wings out into this position. Just on the inside, you can see that little moving piece. It's kind of a lock in robot mode, but if you don't bend it out before the transformation, to jet, it ends up warping that plastic a bit. So ignore what I did and start with that first. Pop this panel down. Going to fold the head in, and this is a bit tricky to get the head in. You kind of got to tilt it, but I'm not really sure if it's got to go forwards or backwards. Now, because it's got this square section at the back of the head and there's a square section cut away underneath, I'm thinking that this is the correct way to go, but the tolerance is just really tight. I mean, it does definitely fit. You can see I put it in there, but there was a bit of friction involved. Peg that back down like that. Is that it? Now, right. These little flaps here are going to flap up like that, just to make them a flat piece, and then they're going to fold back into the chest cavity underneath like that. You'll have to forgive me if I'm a bit haphazard with this. It's just there's so many things to remember, and because it didn't come with instructions, a little bit tricky. Okay, I'm going to swing these hips open like that, and you can see this round thing in here that looks like it wants to flip out. It does flip out, but before you can flip it out, you got to... Oh, wait a minute. No, sorry. Sometimes this is like that on the inside, locking it in there, and if that's the case, you just got to straighten it out before it flips out, but I had already done that. So flip that out, then rotate this around. This is a... Maybe it goes the other way. Yeah, there we go. Locks out like that. That's the landing gear. It's only a molded detail. It doesn't actually rotate. Do the same with the other side. It's a bit stiff. There we go. Now what's next? Alright. Pull these out like that. Then what we want to do is get this stuff out of here for clearance. So just we fold them down. Move this on this rail a little bit, like it's actually on a rail, you can see that. That'll just let you slide these up out of the way. I just want those out of the way so I can do this other complicated bit. So this part slides on a rail, but at the same time, this whole section also slides on a rail. So you can see that the main rail just slid down in between the nozzles here. Like I'll do that again. It moves down like that, and then this one also moves down even further. And that kind of, you can see you can pull them apart to give you this good space here. Then these slide on rails inwards. Now you want to get this one with the extra piece on the hand, and we're going to rotate. Stay out of the way. We're going to rotate that around, and that exactly fits there, you can see. So we'll worry about these arms in a minute. Once that's all done, you can straighten these things back off, these panels, and it's going to peg in like that. And then these will just hang out here out of the way. You won't see them, and they peg in at the top. So everything actually pegs in the end, and it's quite secure. It's just the intermediate stages are kind of all over the place, but it's, you know, it's got a purpose. So now we're going to flip the wings around. Actually has a snap in point. You can see the little bump there. There's a kind of another piece that flexes in and out that will hit that bump and lock it. Then what we want to do is snap this nose cone up. So if you push it past a certain point, it snaps. It's now locked into position. Then we want to flip these nozzles around. How's that going to work? This way, like that, and this way like that, and then push them back in again. And you can see that they line up with these panels that are there, and they secure everything. And also these details at the front fit snugly into the shape there. So if you haven't got them fitting snugly in, it means you got them backwards. Next, we want to get this red panel and rotate it all the way up. We can do that on both sides. And then flip it around 180 degrees. You can do that on both hands, 180 degrees. This is a bit tricky. You can see this is it's like a mushroom peg but longer. What you want to do is you want to snap it off. It's actually very tight. It's hard to get a good hold of. I can't do this in front of camera. I don't want to break the toy. Just 1 second. It was actually too tight to transform, so what I did was I popped it with a screwdriver and just put some lube in there so that I could do it. Now it this is what it should have done to start off with. It snaps like this, and you should be able to snap the other one like that. Now that's you know, toys shouldn't do that out of the box. It should just work. I think the best thing is don't force it. If you can't get it off, then the first time you're going to have to do it like with a screwdriver or push something under there, because if you force it too much, I think that either you're going to snap the peg off that holds this on, or maybe strip some of those screws, the thread around the screws in there, which is definitely, you don't want to do that. The next step is to rotate this red thing back around like this and grab the regular elbow joint, not the mushroom peg but the regular one, and rotate it. It's hard to do on camera. It's a little bit easier to do off camera. Sorry, like this. So you want to rotate that back down like that, and what that's going to do is put it in just the right spot so that this peg under the hand will peg in like that. Now we want to do the same thing on the other side. Fold this around. You'll see how it solidifies in a minute. Just these two bits are opposite each other, which is kind of what's important. You need to make them parallel. If it's not parallel, it won't work. Grab the gun. Slide the gun up onto that rail, and it's really secure. And do the same on the other side. So that forms like a really strong backbone of the undercarriage to keep it all straight. It's taking forever. It's getting there though. Okay, next we want to bring these hips around, and at the same time collapse the lower part of the leg onto the thigh. Now the hip is going to move through the lower part of the leg, but you want to keep this little flap up like that so that you can put it back to its closed position later on. Don't let it fold back over, or it'll get stuck. So once you get to about there, you can push it back over. Just check out the other side to make sure it's all going in. And it's not going in. I figured out what I was doing wrong. To peg the legs in, like you can see, this is rock solid now. To peg the legs in, once you've got the legs closed like this, there's a peg in here going on to this, just under the landing gear. Two pegs that go into the ball shoulder at the back. You peg that first, and then squeeze the bigger peg together in the ball shoulder at the front. So if you squeeze this one first, then this one, and then peg this hand in, it makes this rock solid bond. On the other side, you can see these, once you've done those undercarriage pieces, this upper peg will just peg in like that. There we go. And like make it doubly strong. You can see these little stoppers. That is what makes it hit the exact right wing position. Okay. Now the only thing left to do is transform the backhand. As it is, that backhand just looks ugly sticking out like that. What you do is you jiggle it sideways like this, and then just open it up and flip it around, and that's it. In profile, it's disappeared. If you look at straight up the back like that, you can see the block still hanging out there, but like from most shots it kind of disappears. I would have liked some kind of panel to cover up this section at the back, but I'm not quite sure where it would have gone engineering wise. And I mean, I'm not a fan of parts forming. Like I just recently bought that third-party Astro train, and on his back to cover up an open space there's just a panel that pops off. It does make the vehicle mode look better, but it destroys the perfect transformation, so I think I'm probably just satisfied with that the way it is. Now flip this out, let's set it down. Skyfire in jet mode. Now this really looks like Skyfire in jet mode. I mean, look at that. It has the Skyfire's depiction changed from episode to episode, and even the way that he transformed apparently changed from episode to episode. Sometimes you'd see something that looked like an arm underneath, sometimes just a white block, and I think that's one of the reasons we never got a proper Skyfire toy up until now. But I like the way that they've done it. I mean, to get that one column happening, it kind of fits with most of the animation that I saw. Now it has to get a bit technical, so you see a little bit of detail in here. In the animation it was just one seamless block and there was no hand hanging out at the front. But I think this is the closest that we've got. And when you look at it from this kind of angle, I mean, that's spot on. Just the shape of the nose, the proportions of the windows, the proportions of the fin at the top, the kind of legs at the side. I think I really like this toy. Here you can see I've attached that missile spam pod, and I like the way that looks. It gives Skyfire some weapon that he never had before. But where's the other one? I can't attach this. I'd love to hear from somebody else who bought this toy to know if it's supposed to come with two, because mine only came with one and it definitely needs two to hold the other one on. This extra bit that they gave is only useful in robot mode. For a comparison here in vehicle mode, you can see that Jetfire here is really clearly Jetfire. I mean, look at the Valkyrie curves on him. It's beautiful, but you know, not the same. Skyguardian is clearly Skyfire. So I got a place for both of these toys. I like them, but if I have to pick, I think I'm going with Skyguardian. And here's the comparison with Kronos in vehicle mode. And you know what? There really is no comparison. Kronos is this huge brick that parts forms from one mode to the other. It just still looks bad. Even though they do parts forming, it doesn't really accomplish what it sets out to do. Look at the gap in here, the odd squared off nose. These side bits pop off. The backpack has to pop off and flip around. It's like, it doesn't even look crisp for the size of the toy. The lines are spongy. The paint, look, I mean, just take a look at this. It's so hard, it's heavy to hold both of those. But for a comparison on the backpack, look at this backpack. Here we have a use of coloured see-through plastic to achieve the window. On Kronos, we've just got paint roughly sprayed over like they masked it off with tape. It's really quite poor in comparison. So at least for my money, in my opinion, at the end of the day, now that both of these are out, I go with Skyguardian any day. I think he holds up in both modes, and I'm happy with it, especially in comparison to Kronos, and also quite a bit in comparison to the Hasbro offering. I mean, one of the things I like about this is the ability to be able to play with it. I mean, look at this. That's pretty rigid. Everything pegs into its right place. And you saw how hard it was to get this transformed. So it's actually quite difficult to get it from one mode to the other. But when you've got it in the final mode, the jet mode or the robot mode, it's a solid figure, and it just lets you have fun with it. Like you can treat this like a real toy. This is actually more solid in vehicle mode than the Takara Jetfire that I've got. It actually sticks together like a block, which is, I mean, look at that. I'm confident that that's not going to break. It's pegged here, 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 and here. Like that's not bad. On the flip side, there's a few things in this that are questionable. I think this is a mistake. Like if that squared off section, it doesn't fit the back of his head. If the back of his head could tilt a little bit more, these fingers could close, and then the hand wouldn't be sticking up like that. I think something's gone wrong in the process that made it to be that case. Something else which is just a little bit off that could have been tweaked. I think the tolerance of these 5mm ports on the back of the arms didn't take into account the thickness of the paint, because they're quite difficult to peg anything into. You can do it, but it takes a lot of pushing. And the worst thing that really isn't so good, these pegs, these mushroom-shaped pegs that needed to be snapped back, without some lube and extreme care, they would have broken, I think, had I tried to force them. So if someone did buy this toy and just yanked on it and tried to force it, I think it would be snapped. I think it's a tolerance issue. Maybe because the mold is so new, they haven't made many of them. I don't know. I'm not an expert, but definitely if you buy this figure and it feels too hard, even if you have to unscrew the pieces around here just to sand it down a little, and then after that it will work fine. I don't particularly like the hollowness of the underside of the wing, but all in all, the figure doesn't look very hollow. Although it's not very heavy, it's probably approximately equally as heavy as Orion there. My final thoughts. The one killer thing with this toy is the price. I was really torn over whether to buy this. About $180 odd US dollars plus shipping to get this. For me, by the time I got this in my hand, it cost me 300 Australian dollars, which is insane to pay that for this toy. It's a good, I feel like it's a good toy, but for that price, if you're looking at it with the price in mind, there's a few things like just minor paint defects, like the eyes on my one don't have the paint properly applied in them, and that the tightness here that I had to pry off, making a little ugly mark on it. For that price, I think that I shouldn't have had to have dealt with those. But on the other hand, the reason that I bought it, the reason that I pulled the trigger on that $300 was because what other way can you get Skyfire from G1? I haven't seen any other figure that comes as close as this, and I wanted Skyfire for a long time. I spent a lot of money to get Kronos when Kronos came out, because that was my hope with Kronos. I kind of got sold at the last minute with him and then was very disappointed. At least with this figure, I'm not disappointed. I can sit it on my shelf and it looks like what it's meant to look like. Now, it is very complicated to transform. Like, it's all logical. You can go from step to step to step, but the time it takes to transform it is significant, so it makes me reluctant to do it. It doesn't feel like it's going to break when it transforms. When you transform Kronos, there are actually pieces on him which feel like they're breaking every time you do it and getting worn down. This figure feels like it could survive a decent amount of transformations if you have the patience to do it. On the day I bought this, the reason I picked that day was I was looking at BBTS and they had 3 in stock. I didn't check at the beginning to see if they had more than the 24 or whatever they let you see. So I have no idea how many BBTS originally got. But when I looked at 3 and I saw another review go up and a video transformation go up on YouTube, I thought this might be just like a flash in the pan. I didn't want to miss the opportunity, so I bought one of them. Last time I looked, there's 2 there. No one bought one since me. So you can probably still go out and get this from BBTS if you want it. I haven't seen this listed anywhere else, so not much choice so far as paying the BBTS price. I don't know how much of that price is the Big Bad Toy Store markup and how much of it is Mechaform, and I'm guessing unless they get that out somewhere else, like my preferred shop like Chumangmang or somewhere like that, we're never going to know. That's about it. This has been my video review for third-party Skyfire from Mechaform, Skyguardian. I'm Odeean. Thank you for watching. Bam bam tsh, bam bam tsh, da 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 da. Very G1.